My name is Paul Sutliff, and my books are Civilization Jihad and the Myth of Modern Islam. And the first one is Stealth Jihad Phase 2 Infiltrate American Colleges. I think the number one thing people don't get is that there is no such thing as modern Islam, and that has to be foremost taught now. And that is the only way we're gonna survive these attacks. We have to start teaching people what Islam believes as far as jihad. And until we do that, we're doomed to several hundred more of these attacks. They believe that there are three different levels of jihad, and we know this from the 1915 fatwa that was that Ambassador Morgenthau shared with the United States. He caught it in. It was the last fatwa given by the caliph before he was deposed, and this
So
fatwa
this
is
would be the
so.
Caliph of the Ottoman Empire?
Yes. Yes. It's this particular fatwa talks about three different levels. One is heart jihad, and they have to he said you have to feel it in your heart. And this where he's talking about is the desire to kill non-Muslims. Then you have if you're in a place that you can't attack people because they outnumber you, you can write about it. You can share Islam, and you can do everything you can against the non-Muslims. But the next level is violent and bloody jihad. And this is highly encouraged. And when this fatwa was written, as a result, there was something called the Armenian genocide. And this is the whole reason behind that. In this kind of stuff, we have a caliph again who is making pronouncements, who has basically said, okay, we'd like you to take on all the cops. We'd like you to take on the military men and their families when they return home. I mean, this is the stuff a caliph can do. He can give those orders. And it sounds simple to understand, but for some reason, the media and the people who are supposed to be making wise decisions regarding government stance can't seem to grasp the reality of it. Uh, I I have two thoughts. One is that one is that in the 1960s, the Muslim Brotherhood infiltrated the colleges, and to the detriment of all mankind today.
By
And
what
I say
machine? By what mechanism?
they came here as students and they became professors. They now teach in several colleges around the United States. There are over 800 entities of a group called the Muslim Student Association in colleges across North America. So this will give you a clue. There is a secret part of the MSA which actually recruits people into the Muslim Brotherhood. Um, a professor that is local here actually republished the quote prayer book and quite recruitment type book. His name is Dr. Muhammad Shafiq, and he's out of Nazareth College of Rochester. Um, he republished his favorite professor's book, who is Ismail Faruqi. Now, Ismail Faruqi wrote the manual basically for the prayer groups, which were the recruitment tools handed out to the Muslim Student Association to recruit new Muslim Brotherhood members. He republished that in his first book. I was somebody handed me the book to begin with, and I was looking at it. I was like, I already know who Shafiq was because we had butt heads in the fact that he brought the Muslim Brotherhood into Nazareth College. But when I discovered how much more he was doing, I was really shocked. You know, people will say things like, "This is you're really getting into conspiracy theories." But the problem is when you actually find a conspiracy and it's larger than you can believe, which is what this is. It's all because the FBI is not doing their job. They're not protecting America. They're allowing terrorists to infiltrate our colleges and not telling anyone. Now, here's a thing I actually proposed to colleges, and I tried to get it into an I read tried to get an article into a source that would share it with every college admissions officer. And here was the question I proposed in this article. Since these colleges now recruit all over the world, would they be willing to say to students who are coming from Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, in Egypt, would they be willing to tell them that if you end up taking part in their college's Muslim Student Association, you probably won't be able to go home? And s- all of the college admissions officers I have talked to refuse to even discuss this. But this is the truth behind it. The Muslim Student Association has been identified as the outreach arm of a terrorist organization known as the Muslim Brotherhood. It is the recruitment tool. And this is a sad, sorry truth, and nobody's doing anything about it. Well, what happened is these kids were who were really not kids to begin with. They were in their 20s when they came over. They're most college kids start around 18. These guys were coming as grad students, so they get over here for their colleges and they start becoming professors. And they are now in. I'm going to guess close to a couple hundred schools today in America. And I'm in Canada. And what they are doing is telling people, which they've been doing for years, lies about what Islam really believes and teaches. Now, this is called taqiyya, and this is part of Islamic practice. They don't want people to actually know what they believe. So since the 60s, this has been going on. So now have professors. So we now have, sorry, let's put it this way: we have now policemen, we have military men, we have generals who are coming up through all this and not being told the truth. We have people who've been taught several things about national security things, but they leave out the truth about Islamic terrorism because they're not allowed to. In fact, that's been forced out by, again, the Muslim Brotherhood's work in the CIA through John Brennan, the director, and the Homeland Security Director, who is Jay Johnson, and he also presided over this. And I believe he also is Muslim. There's so much coordination in this particular administration of Muslim Brotherhood persons in highfalutin offices. It's shocking. Yes. And that's exactly it. We have to it, the real truth, I mean, well, we could talk about CVE, but CVE is really a joke today. The truth of it is that we have this long march of intended infiltration of America for the purpose of, you know, subverting it and destroying it by our own hand. Which is what they're talking about, getting into the American government and changing it. I can tell you, if you look at every party today, you will probably find a Muslim Brotherhood member in it. Um, they've now formed a quote group that has PAC money, and they are finding different ways to put monies in.
What does that
CARE
mean,
has
PAC money, please?
PAC is political action committee funds, and you can give more than being if you are a person. Um, so we're talking about a minimum gift for an election cycle. Or sorry, not a minimum, but a maximum gift for an election cycle, which is like a primary. You would get 2,500. Uh, but there are ways around that, and by giving more, which is so they could probably give $5,000 a year since there's a primary and a general election. So if you're going to fund somebody, that would be Hillary Clinton who would support this group. She already is because her right hand woman is a member of this group, and that is the Muslim Brotherhood Sisterhood.
Huma Abedin, I think you're
Huma
referring to.
Abedin. Yes.
And so, what is her deal?
Now she has more connections. It's amazing. Let me just pull up. I have when I actually did an article on her, it was a couple years ago, and I was just amazed how much I actually learned. I did not expect to find everything about her. That I think I look at Huma Abedin as somebody that people should be shocked about. How can this is the thing about we talk about our people in charge should be able to pass a national security test. They should be able to be checked and vetted, and some people are just not doing that job. There's no way these people could take office. if I can find this information out and I have no military secret clearance, I'm a no one. And this is this stuff that bothers me. How can I discover this stuff and nobody else can? So here's some of the things I learned. Huma Abedin is the most prominent. At the time I wrote this, she was the most prominent case of Muslim Brotherhood influence that the major media outlets dared to touch. Defensively, Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann and 5 other congressional representatives dared to question how she could have passed a security clearance. Considering the national connections she had to outside groups, they could be deemed hostile to America, including several connections to Muslim Brotherhood. Andrew McCarthy wrote about this extensively. Um, and people are continually asking, how can she be connected to all these people and still pass a national security clearance? Um, I mean, her security violations are exposed. This is the thing that kills me. Now, if my friends who have had to get them later in life had to go through this stringent thing, people coming and checking on you, they're looking at all your connections, you have to actually write out if you know anybody from another government or you know anybody outside the United States, you actually have to write their names down on a form and you have to state what your relationships are with them. I mean, I'm talking about everyone you know that's outside this country. And
That
this
could be
form
a
is
very long
extensive.
form.
Yeah, it can be, and that's the point. So if that's the case, and Huma Abedin actually filled this form out correctly, there is no way she could have passed, and that's part of the issue. Who passed her, and how did she get past this group? Um, I looked at this because I thought, here's the thing that we're having. I'm just going to point this out with schools. You have a kid today in college, and goes to take a class, and one of the professors is a Muslim Brotherhood member. Now, let's say we identify the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist entity, as other countries have. So now this kid goes to try and get a security clearance later on in life and can't get it. Why? Because his professor was a Muslim Brotherhood member. Well, they can't trust this kid. Well, there may be good reasons for that. Why were you taking a class with him? What was your desire? What was your purpose in spending time with this professor? There's those things that the CIA, the FBI, NSA, all those alphabet soup agencies need to be looking into.
I think there
But
may be a special exception if you invent a clock.
yeah, well, if you invent a clock that you actually decided to call inventing rather than just taking the guts out of an already made clock and throwing it in a box and saying, "Hey, I made something." That's the hilariousness of it. I mean, there's so many people in this office. Um, Most people don't know one of the people, which I mentioned in my last article, is Ozma Mirza. Now, Ozma Mirza, this is the thing that got me about her. When I first started typing in names in the White House visitor logs, I didn't know, I typed in last names of people who were in the Muslim Brotherhood, and every one of them appeared. Every one, which was crazy. But what got me was Ozma Mirza. She is the daughter of Yaakov Mirza, who's a prominent member of the North American Muslim Brotherhood, and he's an officer of the International Institute of Islamic Thought, which is, again, identified by the Muslim Brotherhood's own documents as part of their organization. Now, this is interesting. In 2010, this is she's 26 years old. And all of a sudden, she was put on the Surah Council of ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America, which is the adult. You have the kids version is the Muslim Student Association. Now you have the grown up. I'm too big for college thing, which is the Islamic Society of North America, which MSA created. They needed another way to reach out to adults, and that's it. So she's on that board at the age of 26. This is unheard of that they would have somebody that young. Okay, interesting thing. After she turned 26 and got on the Shura Council, she started working in the White House. Okay, she is one of the big wigs in the Office of Management and Budget. Um, my, our POTUS, President of the United States, has said if you have any questions about your budget, See Ozma Mirza. I- Another interesting thing about this is required by law that you post all of those people who are working in the White House. I'm sure there's some security clearance secrets that I'll admit to that, but her salary is the only one not posted and has not been posted since she's been working in the White House, and that's since 2010. You can find when you type in the White House visitor logs, it's ASMA's. Last name is Mirza. When I did this search on her last time, um, she's listed in the visitor logs 950 times. Now I say listed because originally she visited, and then she decided, when we had the shutdown of what do they call it? That when Obama shut things down and he had that nobody, we couldn't have visitors in the White House because it was too expensive. It cost money. Well, she led the tours, and the tours she was leading were exclusively for Muslim Brotherhood members. Yes, and that is easily traceable and verifiable. I mean, this is the strange stuff that is so strange. It just blows your mind. And again, I have no access to anything secret. This is just public documents you can pick up and find for yourself. And that's I think that's one of the reasons the visitor log documents are getting harder to use because I talk about who's actually on there and other people are doing the same thing. This stu this is just proof the FBI, the CIA, and NSA are not doing their job protecting America, and they have not been since at least since this person has been in office, as president. I have no other explanation, but the truth of the matter is this has been going on a lot longer because the Muslim Student Association is I mean, it's been here since the '60s. The FBI was following members of it around and the leaders of it around since the '80s. They have audio tapes of, that they were listening in on them. It's scary that they go from listening in and secretly wiretapping them to saying, "Well, these guys are okay." What happened? What changed? And the only thing that has changed is that our president, who I believe is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, has personally made the proclamation that we will treat these guys as good. His own there was a petition that went out on the Muslim Brotherhood 2 years ago, and they asked for the Muslim Brotherhood to be declared a terrorist group. They had, and here's the thing about the petition process on WhiteHouse.gov. If you get a certain number of, I think it was 30,000 responses, the White House has promised to respond. So they got hundreds of thousands of people to sign off, and the White House did not respond. So the promise was originally they would respond within 30 days if you got something down. 1 year later, the White House responds. The Muslim Brotherhood is a nonviolent group, they say. Okay, did you know that Hamas is a chapter of the Muslim Brotherhood? Now, if I know that, and it's just come from simple reading, and all you have to read is the Hamas charter. If you can read that, you can see that the Muslim Brotherhood is far from a nonviolent group. And this is part of what I put into my book because we have people putting out historical lies about Islam and what they teach and about what Muslim Brotherhood is. In my book, Civilization, Jihad, and the Myth of Modern Islam, I go into in depth in this history. And I call President Obama out for lying to the people, knowingly lying to the people about what they believe and what they teach. So if you actually look at the violent history of the Muslim Brotherhood, you find assassinations. Um, what killed me, which
including
one
a
of the things.
president of Egypt, I think.
Yes, Anwar Sadat. I was so shocked. Anwar Sadat was an assassin for the Muslim Brotherhood. He worked in their secret organization. I cannot. I don't have the name of. I can't pronounce that name. But this is the thing that gets me. The secret organization was originally put together by Hassan al-Banna, who was the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood. This is stuff that has been going on since the 1920s. I'm a public school teacher and as well, and this is what gets me. What they're teaching in the schools is not enough to arm the people with knowledge so they can combat this reality. This is how we beat communism. We beat it to a pulp, to the point where it was dying all around the world.